right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this election eve. We're just over 1 year from the midterms, so we figured we'd gather everyone here tonight to provide some, hopefully, hope and optimism for next year and the future here in Massachusetts and around the Northeast. My name's Ross Connolly. I'm the Northeast Regional Director for Americans for Prosperity, and we are the nation's largest grassroots organization operating in all 50 states. And what we do is try to empower the average citizen to make a difference, whether it's in their community, at the local level, at the state level, or at the national level, to be able to break barriers in government that are holding Americans back from reaching their full potential or whatever version of the American dream that they're seeking. And we are happy, more than happy, to partner with the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance tonight and in the future to try to push back on the other side here in Massachusetts, to make Massachusetts what it used to be, the cradle of American freedom and liberty, one of the places that this country was founded, but has obviously strayed down a path of more dependence and less opportunity, more and more housing costs, energy costs rising. Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance is really the leading group here in the Commonwealth, pushing back in the State House and on the streets, holding legislators accountable for their votes that are hitting you in your wallets. And when you get your energy bill every single month and it keeps going up, you have to talk to your neighbors, you have to share some MassFiscal videos to be able to get the word out of how these policies at the State House right across the park are affecting the average person. So that's how we make the difference, and we're here tonight. We're gonna have a great panel of folks talking about how you can bring attention to these issues to make a difference. Just one quick anecdote to give people a little hope to start. My team and I, we cover the entire Northeast of the United States, so Maryland to Maine. Say a prayer for our friends in New Jersey tonight that have a big election. But one of the real highlights was a lot of the similar policies that Massachusetts is pushing that Representative Boldyga is fighting in the State House is on the energy front, the constant rising energy costs. And in the state of Vermont last year, that was the issue. We at AFP helped make it the issue, bringing attention to voters, connecting the policies to the politicians that created this problem. And in deep, deep blue Vermont, Bernie's Vermont, nationwide we saw 56 seats flipped from Democrats to Republicans at the state level. 26 of those were in the state of Vermont, where they hate Donald Trump. They did not vote for Republicans at the federal level, but they jumped the ballot and voted for fiscal conservatives at the state level. And that was only the beginning. It's gonna continue going forward. So no matter where you are, if you focus on the right issues and you get the word out in the right way, which we'll be giving you some tips tonight on how to do that, you can make a difference in your local community and right here in Massachusetts. So with that, I want to turn it over to Paul Craney with Massachusetts Fiscal.
Thank you, Ross. That's very nice comments from MassFiscal and the team. My name is Paul Craney. I have the honor to introduce our special guest, Mary Katharine Ham, and then we're going to have a panel. But a little bit about Mary Katharine. She's a seasoned journalist, author, and commentator who's appeared on CNN, Fox News. Known for her sharp wit and trademark wit, she brings a thoughtful perspective on politics, culture, and the direction of the country. She will be joined by a panel afterwards of policy leaders, media voices, elected officials who will offer a sharp insight into the challenges and opportunities facing our Commonwealth and the country. So that being said, Mary Katharine, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to stand here instead of there, because that seems safer after one beer. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me on this dark night of the soul. I mean, election night. Someone downstairs said, "You're always so optimistic. Are you going to be optimistic tonight?" And I was like, "I'll be fun. I'll make you smile. I don't know if I'll be optimistic." Can I tell a funny story? I think I was meant to be here today. This morning, I saw an Instagram reel of a guy in a Cheers bar costume, Halloween costume, like from the intro of the Cheers sitcom. I haven't thought about Cheers in years. And I was like, "Hey," to my husband, "did you know that I'm in the Cheers intro? There's a time-traveling doppelganger of me who's in the Cheers intro." And my husband's like, "No." But I play the Cheers intro for him, and he's like, "Oh, yeah." And so, either I'm supposed to be here tonight, and God was telling me that, or my phone just creepily knew that I was going to be in Boston, and it was like, "Here's some Boston content," but I just want to confirm with everyone on the front row. Yeah, and I can pass it around later. So you guys can see, right under John Ratzenberger's name is me. So I just texted my husband and was like, "I'm in the Cheers bar right now." So anyway, it's probably the creepy phone, but let's just assume that I can tell the future, and then you can trust all the news I tell you about the elections. Look, it's an off-year election. Although, by the way, disclaimer, none of this is anyone endorsing anything. I'm just having a talk about politics and trends. Okay, I like to do that for AFP friends. It's an off-year election. Republicans are in power. Democrats just voted for the 14th time, I think, to keep the government closed. And I was caught on the tarmac, by the way, in that security incident at DCA and made it here anyway. And to be here tonight, guys, I did the most un-DC thing, which is that I turned down an opportunity to make that security threat all about me. Will Kane was like, "Can you come on and talk about it?" And I was like, "Well, I've got some work to do, so I cannot." So I want you to know I resisted that urge, but it's worth it to be here with you. I saw the Kentucky Secretary of State, Michael Adams, tweeted today, "We're getting calls about polls being closed. They are closed because we do not have elections today. Kentucky votes next year. You cannot vote today for mayor of New York City or Virginia governor. I am sorry." He followed it up with, "Have I mentioned that I am in favor of more civic education?" To which I say, same, Secretary, same. And that's sort of what it's like being one of you guys, is that we are the ones who know that Kentucky's not voting today. We're not normal. And that is a lesson that I have to bring to people over and over and over again. We have to pretend we're normal to reach normal people. But we're like, at best, normie adjacent. Certainly me, although I try. And I try not to get out of touch. But I think that's an important lesson about politics, is that, and one way I've always put it is, whether it's WWE or Days of Our Lives, imagine you're a super fan of Days of Our Lives or WWE or Bravo. That's another good one, a little more modern. Whatever Real Housewives franchise it is. And you are telling your friends all the time that there's something very important happening on Real Housewives every single day. And they look at you and they're like, "That can't be right." And you say, no, it's very important, you have to follow it. And they're like, "I kind of feel if I check in 4 years from now, it'll basically be the same story." So closing that gap is what you guys do, and it's actually really noble work. It is hard. It's hard to run around in your mind with this info all the time, and then go out and make the pitch to other people that they should care about it. It becomes even harder in a state like Massachusetts, if you are at all right of center. So thank you to all of you for doing that work. Give yourselves a round of applause. To the extent that I can be positive, it's because of people like you. I started my career as a newspaper journalist, and don't hold it against me, I am a fourth generation newspaper journalist. That's right. My great-grandfather started the very important newspaper in very important Pitts, Georgia. And then my grandfather worked for him, and my dad became a newspaper man, and then I was a newspaper person. And little did I know that newspapers would die out before my family line. So, except for my friend here, who's going to be on the panel, who is improbably younger than I am and employed by a newspaper. We love to see, and right of center. Amazing stuff. She's a real specimen. I can't wait to hear from her. But I started in North Carolina at a daily paper, and then was like, even in rural North Carolina, I was too right-wing for the paper. I was like, I guess I'll go to DC. So that was sort of my path to DC, and one of the ways that I try to stay in touch with what normal people are thinking. Actually, one of the things I think is wrong with journalism these days is that a lot of people don't do the path from a small town journalism job to a major metro daily or to the Washington Post. The pipeline goes straight from the Ivy League to the Washington Post or to the New York Times. And not having that moment in the middle is really bad for civic education, for understanding what you're covering, and that kind of thing. Can I tell a real quick story that has nothing to do with politics? Yeah. Or I can just tie it up in a bow and pretend it has something to do with politics. Okay, here we go. In North Carolina, when I was a newspaper reporter, this is the kind of experience that they don't get when they go straight from Columbia to the New York Times. I was at a media day at The Rock in Rockingham, North Carolina. I was a NASCAR reporter. That's right, a NASCAR reporter. And Friday Night Football. Those were my beats. So I got to this media day, and they have Dale Jr. at the media day. Now I'm gonna date myself because A, it was Dale Jr.'s prime, and B, it was in the time that people were at the Winston Cup. It was the Winston Cup. They were just giving out cigarettes. It was old press room stuff. You would walk into the press room and they were like, here is your carton. And we would all say, thank you. Those were the days. It's not like that anymore. I think a lot of people would file a lot of HR complaints in modern journalism if that were the case, but back then, let's get to our next HR complaint. So, Dale Jr. comes, he's a very shy guy, by the way, and he's gonna give all of us a ride around the track in a real stock car. Not a pace car, real deal, but it has an extra seat in it. And so we all get in a fire suit, because you gotta get in the fire suit to be in the real stock car. And I am the only 23-year-old woman among the sports writers at The Rock that day. And I get in my fire suit, and they put me in the car, I get all buckled in, and Dale Jr.'s crew guy leans across me and he goes, all right, Dale, no parking with her on the backstretch. And I, being a professional woman, perhaps should have been offended that someone would say this in my professional capacity. But you know what? I said, someone just insinuated that Dale Jr. would make out with me. And I am now the Queen of North Carolina. Dale Jr., by the way, very nice person, blushed and was like, dude, quit it. And we did the one lap, which is not a euphemism, and I wrote my story and I moved on. And that is the kind of experience you can't get unless you work at The Rock for a couple of years and then go to the New York Times. And I would wager that those people would be much better off if they spent a little time at The Rock in Rockingham, North Carolina. I should put that in my bio. Okay. I love speaking at 7 p.m. on election night because you can't hold me accountable for any of this. Like nothing has happened yet. Who knows? We live in a special place right now. You can't even check your phones because that would like be medium bad manners. So nobody knows what's happening, and we can all just pretend that everyone won. But I want to say a few words about sort of learning the wrong lessons from elections. And that can maybe be the warning moving forward. Whatever comes out of tonight, which we can talk about further on the panel too. But 2012, what was the Democrat lesson? Demography is destiny. We never have to try again. Obama's amazing. This work is done. The whole country's blue. Didn't work out for them. What was the Republican lesson? The autopsy from the RNC said, we have to be like a lot nicer. I think we have to be nicer and like maybe give more things away, but definitely just be nicer specifically to younger people and minorities. That's 2016. What's the Democratic lesson? We must unpresident the president. Not a great lesson to learn. Republicans, be meaner? Specifically to young people and minorities? We're not really sure what happened. Let's take the win and run with it. We're sort of confused. 2020. Everyone go insane. On both sides. All the Republicans like slightly less insane until that day in January when they went pretty insane, and then Democrats went even more insane going after the people who went insane. And it's all like back and forth, the ratchet, right? Now, this is where we get to tonight's races. Youngkin was the indication in Virginia in 2021 that Republicans were prepared to be the slightly less insane party. And that's the key to everything. Now in 2024, what lesson are these guys learning? And they're gonna get a clue tonight. Republicans, I think the lesson thus far seems to be use executive power when you have it. And that may run up against some problems. From SCOTUS, from voters, remains to be seen. For Democrats, it is moderate or Mamdani. Which one shall we do? And look, they're trying out two versions. I would argue neither is moderate. Mamdani's certainly not moderate. But where I live in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger is like the great normie savior, right? But like her norminess is that she has kids and wears lame suits. That's it. And she doesn't actively say she hates America. So I guess there's that. She's got that going for her. But on the very basic stuff, like there's 3 or 4 scandals in Northern Virginia schools right now about men being in women's locker rooms repeatedly, accosting and assaulting sometimes young women, boys getting suspended from school because they were objecting to a woman being in their locker room. And she can't even bring herself to be like, yeah, that does seem like a problem. So she hasn't actually moderated, and this is what I think will be interesting coming out of this. Oh, I shouldn't leave out. She didn't moderate by like saying the guy who wanted to murder people like me and my children should not be in the race. Like a real, I do think if they win a couple races tonight, Democratic voters might be slightly less homicidal, which would be good because one of the more homicidal ones might be my attorney general. So like, I want him to be in a better mood, at least maybe. I think that might also be a path to opening the government if they're slightly less mad. We'll see what happens. But we don't have the answers yet. I think it's likely that it's an uphill battle, but you fight the uphill battle as you guys always do, looking like you've been to the gym, right? You put in the work, you make it close. These are D+6 states. And by the way, all the contested House races in 2026 are D+2 at best for them, the ones they need to flip. So that's an indication of like, the margins are going to matter here. These are D+6 states. Chitterelli, I think, is your best chance. Maybe because they get the indication in New Jersey that like, hey, they're being really crazy. How about we be slightly less crazy as a hedge on these guys? So I'm hoping that that might be the outcome there. Virginia, I'm hoping we have a slightly less crazy than the murder text guy, AG. I don't know what will happen on the rest of the ticket. Whether these are indications of the future for 2026, I think New Jersey is the more indicative, because Virginia's quirky, A, because of the aforementioned murder texts, B, because it's full of federal workers who are mad at Doge, and they're mad about the shutdown. They don't blame the shutdown on Democrats, even though they should, because they were already mad about Doge. So that's a quirky race. New Jersey will be interesting because I think you will see indications of this important thing, which is for a certain segment of voters, Republicans have become a less high propensity party, which means in an off-year election, fewer of them are going to turn out than we have in the past. We used to be a high propensity party. We used to show up all the time. The coalition has changed. And particularly, I want to get this right, so let me look at my note on it. Particularly in 2024, in the big analysis of this, Harris lost the most off of Biden's totals to Trump in an interconnected set of voters. People of color, young voters, men, and irregular voters. Young Latinos, Harris lost 12. Young Latino men, she lost 16. Young Latino irregular voters, 17. So tonight I think we'll have some indication whether those voters are willing to come out in off-year elections, tricky, whether their adherence to Trump means adherence to Republican politicians, and whether they're interested in any of this at all. Because to them, it might just look like another Bravo season of Real Housewives, and that they can check in later. Anyway, so tonight, we'll talk about it with the panel, and we'll have more results in the future that I actually don't know, despite what I told you guys earlier, and we will figure out what our correct lessons are to learn going forward. Thank you so much for having me.
Introduce our great panel here. So first we have Mary Katharine Ham, obviously, who just spoke. You can give her a nice follow on X at MKHammer. Paul Craney, Executive Director of MassFiscal Alliance. You can follow them at MassFiscal on X. Carine Hajjar is the former columnist at the Boston Globe, at Carine M. Hajjar on X, and then State Rep Nick Boldyga. Big round of applause for Nick. He is doing yeoman's work in the State House here. And he is a great follow for Massachusetts stories that you can share with your friends at Rep Nick Boldyga. And Jim Polito, host of the Jim Polito Show, at Jim Polito on X. And you can catch him on the radio, Talk 1200, WTAG Radio, WHNY 560, 95 WXTK, and News Radio 920. That's a lot of stations, Jim.
Yeah, it's all right.
And then finally, Julian Barron, who's the managing director of Off the Press. There's kind of a theme, if you notice, to this panel of folks that are in traditional media, people that are in new media, and people who have done a really, really good job of getting a narrative out and creating a sort of firestorm online, which is such an important tool nowadays if we are to affect the overall culture here in Massachusetts. We have to be effective online and in traditional media. MassFiscal does a great example of this if you ever check out their Twitter feed, but something Mary Katharine mentioned from the Youngkin race in 2021, a lot of those stories started on, it was Twitter back then, X now, or on Facebook, with just average parents sharing stories of how these policies were impacting them, and that had a large degree of what actually happened in the election. That those issues in 2021 in Virginia swung that election for Glenn Youngkin. So you can, if you find these niche issues, you can really amplify them and make it a major issue in the election. And in Youngkin's case, put the other side on their back feet. The other candidate had no idea how to respond to that. In fact, kept digging the hole deeper for himself. So I want to get things kicked off here. We'll start off, try and just jump in whenever you want, panelists, but just to start off for everyone, we're in an era where legacy media is declining. There's just less influence. People aren't getting newspapers every single day, and there's been an enormous amount of a break in public trust with legacy media outlets. how can everyday Americans act as truth tellers and watchdogs in their own communities in this way to bring attention to issues and amplify them?
I'll jump on it. Yeah, I think so. One of the things about even my district and my community as a state representative is it's really difficult to know what's going on unless I hear from people. And a lot of times, our emails are inundated every day. It's difficult to actually sort through even an email and find a real email from a constituent in my district, a voter. So one of the things is that when voters go on X or Facebook or whatever other social media channel, to actually tag me or send me a message on there, I actually hear more directly from voters in that avenue today. So I think it's important that if you engage in, and I know some people I've heard from, well, I shouldn't have to go on social media to find my legislator, et cetera. You're always more than welcome, obviously, to pick up the phone, but if you want another form of communication, using social media, using X, and actually contacting me or putting out there what you're seeing in public, whether that's a town meeting form of government that we still have, a local select board or city council meeting, sharing those things with your elected officials, I think is hugely important, and I know it's benefited me in my job and hearing from directly from voters.
It's a rule of thumb that you will get better customer service faster complaining on X than you will calling any phone line, and it goes for politics as well as corporations.
That's a great point, though, and I would say that something that we've seen in the media at large is that it used to be very much that the media was sort of the tone setter, right? And social media was the reaction to the tone that was set by media. I think what we're seeing now is it's very much the opposite. It's the media is reacting to what's happening on social media. And those big stories are happening on social media before they happen on your local television news station, before your cable news station. They're happening on X, they're happening on Facebook, they're happening on Instagram. And so I think the power of taking content to social media first is that not only are you going to be able to have a significant voice in your community beyond what you're used to, but all of the outlets are paying attention to what's happening on social media. I can tell you for what we do at Off the Press, we are constantly monitoring social media. That's what we're doing all day, every day, because we know if we have our eyes glued to social media, we're going to be picking up on stories of local and national relevance before they get to our competitors. And so social media really is the place to go. And I think the media, the establishment media, has realized that that's where you go for the good stories and the good scoops.
Julian, Julian's from out of state.
I am.
But we've talked about this. He likes to just look at Massachusetts school committee meetings because he finds crazy content there that then he'll showcase in like Ohio.
Yeah.
So that people outside of the North Reading School Committee, where they have crazy people talking, can see what's going on in Massachusetts. But the great part about that is, in Massachusetts, a lot of times you feel a little discouraged, I get it. But now since we have these platforms, you can put this stuff out that we all take for granted that's a little nutty, and now everyone is seeing it. And people like Julian is trying to hunt this stuff down. So it's kind of neat to do it. And I encourage everyone here, don't feel helpless. You can go on social media and put this stuff out there that we all kind of see all the time and say, oh, it's just another crazy day in Massachusetts. But also, we have that obligation being in Massachusetts. We got to get this stuff out. No one else will know about it. If Julian's not sharing it and we're not posting it, no one's knowing about this. So my call to you guys here is you can do this too.
As someone from Northern Virginia, I can relate. And it is actually a privilege to have such a wealth of crazy so close by that you can videotape. It's just at your disposal.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it sometimes made my job at the Globe easier because there are so many stories of progressive excess. But I want to say, even though social media is a great way to get an initial story out there, I don't want to discount the role that traditional media has in sort of the quality control. And I know that there is rising distrust in traditional media, but social media is a great way to make something go viral. But now's the time to engage even more with traditional media if you're somebody who's a thought leader, a politician, somebody who's working on the ground with K-12 education policy. If somebody like me could work at the Globe and write the stories that I did, then your stories would be of interest as well. And I think that there's a problem where people feel like now they can only use social media to get their information out there. You run into quality control issues. How many times have you seen something on social media that sounded like a crazy story and didn't end up to be fully true? Obviously, a lot of that stuff does pan out to be, the shocking stories that you tell, right? But traditional reporting is really important, and I sometimes get frustrated with conservatives that they don't reach out more to traditional media because they could make an impact. I understand why they've abandoned it in a lot of ways, but I think now's the time to try to fix it.
And I think one of the things I mentioned is that there is no middle stop for journalists anymore in those small town areas or even in middle-sized towns, and a lot of newspapers and local media do not have the budget or the bandwidth to have people at these meetings.
Yeah.
So if you view yourself, when you point to quality control, if you view yourself as the reporter who is stepping into that role and hold yourself to that standard, you can be of great service to them and of great service to your community and get great stories, especially in very crazy places.
Yeah, and I'd love to add, I completely agree with you about the role of traditional media. And I think what social media does is it forces the hand of traditional media to cover stories that otherwise they would not feel obligated to cover. But it is still so important that we have individuals, professionals, who are going through those pieces of content and verifying that the information at hand is accurate and providing context. It's really a perfect balance between sort of the sensationalism of social media to get the initial storyline out there, paired with the great work that journalists do.
Often journalists, we call it legacy media and stuff, but to Carine's point, it is still a very, very important source. And most journalists are just trying to do a job. They just have a job. Maybe they sway one way or the other. But they're trying to just get a story. So if you find something that's particularly crazy or that's really impacting people at a local or state level, and you just DM it to Carine on Twitter, I'm sure she would look into it, and maybe you can amplify your message even through legacy media. I guess, for the panel, how do you identify those issues? Where do you find those stories that a legacy media outlet would care about or social media would care about to go viral?
There.
Yeah, for
I would
people
say
like
right
you.
there. Right here, because a lot of my material for my show comes directly from listeners. They'll say, Jim, they'll forward me an X post or something else, and it's people like this. I know I have some listeners here, but it's people like this who forward it to me, and then I get my hands on it. And one of the good things that's happening in legacy media is, I think everybody here at this table would agree, we've all worked in newsrooms where we've been kind of the sole conservative, but those newsrooms are now facing economic woes and realizing, like Michael Jordan did, I want to sell sneakers to Republicans too, and maybe I feel a certain way, but I need eyeballs. And if you feed them that, it's the same as somebody filling out a survey at Costco and saying, why don't you have the cheap hot dogs anymore? It is the same thing, and it will drive the organization to do that. What I think most folks don't realize is economically, these guys are looking to sell papers and get eyeballs and get people watching their cable news channels, which is great. And they're starting to realize we have abandoned half of the country because we live in our little insular world, except for everybody here, and especially Mary Katharine, living there on the Western Front in Virginia, but and being as we are here. And it's part of the reason I always say on the show, you are not alone, because you're not. 40% of this state voted for Donald Trump. 40% voted for Donald Trump. That's a lot of muscle at these media organizations who want to sell to advertisers.
By the way I stay normal is that I have 4 kids, and everyone in Northern Virginia is like, that's insane, why would you do that? And I'm like, I'm on the right track. Just have 4 kids, slam them into a townhome like an aircraft carrier. That's the plan. That's how we stay grounded.
And there's also outside that 40%, there's also a bunch of unenrolled. I mean, there are more unenrolled voters in this state than not. And a lot of them that might not want to go as far as voting for Donald Trump, but care a lot about a lot of the same issues that you do. I mean, one of the biggest stories that we had at the Globe in the last year on education was about the multi-level classrooms in Newton. And I had progressive Newton parents calling me screaming about taking away their kids' honors class. These are normal. The idea of meritocracy and excellence in education, for example, is an idea that you don't have to be a MAGA supporter to get behind. Same thing with like a lot of the immigration stories we featured this year.
Education is a great example of a subject matter that is such a great entree. It's the moral thing to do to push many of the policies that conservatives have, and it saved a lot of people during the 2020 through 2022 era when smart people in Northern Virginia decided to shut schools for 2 years. But a lot of people realized, oh, these people don't have my best interests at heart. I need to look elsewhere. The Southern surge in literacy efficacy, led by the Mississippi Miracle, which spread to Alabama and Tennessee, and the new way that they're doing, new/old way that they're doing these things, which is to learn phonics and hold people accountable. Crazy stuff. When they started doing that, it turns out they served a bunch of underserved communities, and rich kids and all the kids learned to read. That was great news. Citizen journalists have actually carried that story very far and finally handed off the ball recently to mainstream media that sort of got wind of it finally. But that's a perfect example of where you're reaching people who might be unaffiliated or even Democrats and might cross the aisle, which is what you saw in the Youngkin election in 2021.
And something too, and Paul, I just want to speak to something you said about Massachusetts. New England is really unique. I come from a place where I live in Maryland, and I'm from Maryland. The vast majority of our state is unincorporated, and so we don't have towns. We have counties, and that's pretty much all we have as it goes when it comes to municipal meetings. It's county board meetings and county school board meetings. That's pretty much it. New England is so unique because you have so many towns up here where so many people are talking about so many different policies. And what I've learned in doing what I've done with Off the Press is a lot of times folks in New England don't recognize the things that their local lawmakers are spending time on. And I had an incident, I'll keep this very brief, but last week, one of the clips that we had found on Off the Press was an hour-long advisory committee. I want to say it was either in Braintree or somewhere south of Boston. Actually, no, it was in Brookline. It was in Brookline. And they spent about an hour. They spent about an hour debating a resolution about encouraging lawmakers at the federal level to invoke the 25th Amendment against Donald Trump. And this is
I think it's, to be fair, just what John Adams pictured.
And
it's exactly as he envisioned it.
when we posted that on social media, it was incredible the people who commented, because we tried to sort of geo-target it to the area, and people were commenting, they're going, wait a minute, I know these people, why are they spending an hour talking about recommending to lawmakers to declare the 25th Amendment or invoke the 25th Amendment against the president? We have real issues in this town that I'd like them to be focusing on. So I think New England is very uniquely positioned because you have so many municipal councils like that spending so much time talking about so many different things.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna follow up with the 40%. So 40% of people in Massachusetts obviously are voting Republican, right? But for so long, for so many decades, you've been afraid to speak up because the legacy media here, the traditional media, is all Democrat heavy. So I've heard for years, like I'd had people coming up to the polling place going, I'm a Republican. I'm voting Republican, like hunched over in fear, hunched over in fear because they're afraid to say that they're a Republican. So we need all of you to actually engage. And back to the reporters, out of all the traditional media out where I am in Western Massachusetts, I'll be at an event or somebody will run up to me for an interview. It's usually somebody right out of college, 22 years old, with a camera, a boom mic, and a light themselves in a little tiny car, driving all around Western Massachusetts, then running back to the studio to cut these things, splice the tape at the end of the day, and try to get it on air. So there's not a lot of availability at these traditional media outlets to get stories out, to be in multiple places. So we need all of you to actually get your cell phone out, your media device, put it on whatever social media platform it is and reach out to all of us and let other people know what's going on, because there's a lot of us that all think the same, but no one's saying it. No one's been saying it for, 70 years now, since 1950. No one's saying what we all think, which is a lot of us.
Well, and they're all looking for their jobs to be easier because they are running around doing that. And if you are helping them, they will respond.
The proverbial one-man band, out doing everything for it. If I could just add something to that about what's happening, I do say you are not alone. There's something that happened with the death of Charlie Kirk, and I think it was transformational, and we were kind of talking about it, the three of us here. It was like JFK. I mean, JFK was going to have a tough time in his reelection. There was a lot going on. JFK gets killed. Everybody stopped and thought this was terrible, Camelot, everything else. Charlie Kirk's death changed a lot of people. I have people who come up to me at certain places and say, Jim, I'm a teacher, I'm an assistant principal, but I listen to your show. They all hate you, but I listen. Since Charlie Kirk's death, many people have said, forget it. I'm putting the red hat on, or I'm doing whatever. Not in an arrogant way, but almost in a way, not emboldened, but forget it. I am going to have this discussion. I am going to present and tell you what I think. And like Charlie Kirk did it, I'm not going to insult you. I'm not going to use your tactics. I'm not going to call you a name. I'm just going to say, I don't think a boy should be in the girls' locker room. It's just not right. It's kind of common sense. And then not really engage in getting to the shouting match, because at that point, it kind of becomes like when a parent walks in a room and two kids are fighting. The parent doesn't care who started it, they just want quiet. More and more people, and I hope you folks leave here tonight thinking this. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not going to get in an argument. I'm not going to burn anything, but I'm just going to say, no, it's common sense that this should happen.
I think that's real, and I am hopeful, partly because I think our friends on the left particularly elite ones, get so bubbleized and in their own circles that they need practice being around people who think differently. And
Because they want blue sky.
No, really. More of us being willing to talk about it, to be brave, to be a little bold, to be respectful about it and debate knowledgeably and hold ourselves to standards that sometimes, the Democratic Virginia AG candidate doesn't hold himself to. Can help people like him understand that he lives in a state that has a bunch of people who think differently, and perhaps that could sort of stop the insanity spin out we see sometimes.
So I want to just pause for 1 second. So we do want to hear from you guys. So we have a team back there. I have note cards. Just raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Write on the note card. They'll come and take it and bring it to the panel. So if you guys want to have a question to anyone on the panel, here's your chance. I do want to mention, though, give you guys a little hope in Massachusetts. When you talk about these issues, and especially if you get past the partisan nature of everything, you start talking about taxes. We talked about the schools, the immigration issue that's flooding our state. If you start talking about these issues, you can win in the state. I'll tell you, MassFiscal would not exist if you can't win on the state on these issues. So a lot of the people that you're engaging with in your local community, they're actually going to probably agree with you on these issues. So don't feel discouraged. I want you guys to come out of this room thinking, one, I have the power to actually make a difference in my town simply by using my phone, holding these folks accountable. And two, most of the people in my town or my community actually agree with me on these issues. If you look at the ballot questions that come up all the time, you'd be surprised we win a lot of these questions. If you look at the call to actions MassFiscal puts out in the State House, we're getting huge amounts of people taking them, and it's because they agree with us. Once you kind of get past the Republican versus Democrat, and you talk about the issues itself. So I want you guys to come out of this meeting today, this town hall, being like, I can actually do something, and I have an obligation to do something in this state, because we are in a state like California, New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts, where there's such a target-rich environment.
Certainly target-rich. And I'd say, like, on the vein of that conversation, what Paul said, one of the most important things for me is having normies that I can go to, just normal people, or even people that lean left, and talk to them and get their perspective, so that you can't counter the left's messaging or whatever policies they're pushing unless you understand where those people are coming from. So understanding where I in full transparency, I was a former communist, so it just sort of shows that, one, everybody has misspent youth.
We're so glad to have you.
And you can convince people to come to the other side. But being able to bounce things off of, because I'm in political world all the time, being able to have some people, they're mostly my family, they don't pay attention to politics. I ask them what they think of X issue and get their perspective, because then you can craft your messaging around what the normal people care about. That's how you win. You win with the normal people. You don't win with the far left or far right, especially in Massachusetts. You can win with the far left by just exposing how insane they are in this state, but you got to win over the middle, and that's very doable. I'd say Paul and Nick do a great job in bringing attention. One great example is the energy issue here, and they were trying to just shove it down people's throats. Is we don't care your bills are going up. We're going forward with the clean heat standard. We're going forward with these crazy policies. And then I mostly saw it from the representative and MassFiscal making videos. Everyone has a television studio in their pocket now, making videos, getting these people on record, putting pressure on people in the State House. And all of a sudden, Governor Healy has this new energy plan that she's gonna lower prices, and all their messaging changed. I don't know if Nick or Paul, you want to talk about.
We're waiting on that issue
how
so
you
much.
did that.
Governor Healy did a 180 and said she didn't stop the pipelines. Like, come on. We all have phones. We can Google it. It takes us 30 seconds. We can see her proudly saying, I stopped 2 pipelines. And now she's publicly saying, I didn't stop pipelines. And there was a newspaper of record who said it wasn't fully her responsibility stopping the pipelines, which I thought was funny. But I mean, that's how much we're winning on these issues, is you have the governor just like lying to everyone. And it's because
It depends upon what the meaning of the word stop is.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I mean, keep that in mind. Can I just add something to that? You do a great job at MassFiscal helping me tell listeners here, go there. This will tell you where your rep is and how you can get the message across. But can I build on something that was just said? Can I please tell the Saving Private Ryan story?
Oh, go for it, yeah.
Okay, so it's a joke we have. In the movie Saving Private Ryan, those brave individuals, there's a scene where the medics are going through people stacked up, and this guy, and he says, forget about him, he's gone. This one, yeah, make him a priority. That one, oh, he's gone. What you've got to do, and when you're talking with people, is don't waste your time with the person who is the devout purple-haired. Don't try to change their mind. Just like the medic, skip over, go to the one that can be changed, because as you've learned here from the rep, there's 40%, and then there's a large group of people who, with a little bit of help and some medicine, can see the light. And what they need is this room full of medics to be able to say to them, I'm going to help you. And I don't do the typical talk radio, insult everybody in the red meat. I'm looking for those people who maybe pay more attention to sports. Let's bring them over to our side.
And to build on that, it's actually a lot about pointing out what your goal is and what you're voting for and what the outcome of that policy is. And a lot of times these things don't align. So, for example, at the Globe, we had an editorial about the literacy bill that's at the State House right now. It just passed the House. A lot of especially progressive towns in the state were using just literacy curriculum that is not proven to work. It's not science-backed, as the bill says, but they're teaching kids to read with like pictures, basically, instead of just using what we all know works, which is phonics. And guess like in these most blue towns that are sticking by this unproven method, guess who is suffering the most? Which test scores are the lowest? It's Black, Hispanic, low-income students. And you'd think that their goal, and the teachers union's goal, is to have, all of a sudden they're libertarians, they want the most amount of flexibility in how they are teaching literacy curriculum. But you'd think they'd want to help the students that need the most help. And I found it to be really persuasive, like when I've written columns about this issue, just pointing out that this doesn't actually help the populations that progressives are trying to help.
I got some questions for the panel. Ross, what made you go from communist to conservative?
I knew
Was
that-
it was
knew that
it a
coming.
laugh with Dale Jr.?
I was listening to Mary Katharine Ham on Fox News. No, no, it was. I got heavily indoctrinated. This is, I guess, an anti-school choice, maybe argument. I opted out of public school. Went to I'm from the free state of New Hampshire, by the way. You welcome up to our tax-free anytime. So I went to a Catholic school in southern New Hampshire for high school. They still indoctrinated you. It was a lot of the beginnings of the eco sort of movement, global warming stuff, and that's how they get you in the door. By the time I got to college, I was pretty much, they say how great Marxism is. They put up Marx's tiers of societal rebirth, and communism's at the top of the best. So like you kind of believe it. And then I had a class junior year that was Cold War politics, and there were two professors. One was an American liberal, giving the American position, and the other was a legitimate Soviet communist named Nikolai Petrov. Funny enough, he made us buy his book, which I thought was peak communism.
Always.
And he put up a burn book list, said these books you should never read, they shouldn't exist, basically. And at that time, and still to this day, if you tell me not to do something, then I'm probably going to do that thing. So it was a very libertarian sort of story. I read Atlas Shrugged, and it changed my mind. I ended up working for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign about 5 months later. So it was a pretty quick transition. So there's always hope. Also, the other side, my political philosophy has always been based on anti-violence. You realize that side, their entire philosophy is based on getting things through violence. So not the people from that world aren't real close to me. I don't think we're Facebook friends anymore.
So
Well, the good news is communism has never been tried. So when Mamdani tries it, we'll know more.
Yeah.
We'll test this.
He's going to do it right. This time they're going to do it right.
Ross, it's good that you don't have purple hair anymore. Carine, you're leaving the Boston Globe. Where can people find you next?
I will be at the Washington Post, which is another example, I think, of why not to lose hope in legacy media. I think they've hired a lot of young conservatives on the opinion page. So, I mean, part of this is probably, reading the room and what readers want. You're seeing this all across legacy media, but I'm sure you'll still get a lot of great conservative content in the Globe because they've been really dedicated to showing different opinions on the opinion page.
Thank you. Rep Boldyga, you are on social media, and if you guys don't know that, he's on social media. You should check him out. Why don't other lawmakers in the State House, there's another 199 of you, why aren't they on social media like you are?
Fear. They're all afraid of you. They are all afraid of you. No, really, I think it's fear. One of the things, when I ran for office many years ago, my much younger years, I have always stuck by my principles. I've always voted how I thought we had to vote to change the policies here, and I have the worst office at the State House, one of the worst parking spaces, and I could be the lowest paid representative. And I love every aspect of that. Badge of honor. There's no carrot they dangle in front of me to take away. And I just put it all out there about what we're voting on, or what we don't know we're voting on because the bill was released just a couple of hours ago. I think people need to hear that, and I'm not afraid to put my opinions out for people to know. I think voters appreciate it. I obviously am a voter, and I appreciate it when I talk to somebody who's in elective office if I know and feel that they're telling me the truth of what's really going on, and I think that's what voters and citizens want from their elected representatives.
Well said. Jim Polito, what are some normie issues we should focus on in Massachusetts?
Some normie issues you should focus on in Massachusetts. I have this attitude of just saying to people, use your common sense. And I think that everything that the left is throwing at us does not stand up to common sense. So I used the issue of the locker room before, but let's look at everything else. Remind people, even though certain legacy media has told them that, no, Maura Healey didn't do that. Remind people that if climate change really was happening and it was man-made, why does Barack Obama have a house on the water, on the vineyard in Chilmark, and one in Hawaii? And he's near the Potomac too, in Georgetown, so why isn't he doing that? To me, the normie issues are the everyday things that occur. Energy, education. Why are the teachers' unions indoctrinating? Why are they so concerned? In the old days, I used to say about teaching people to put a condom on a banana. Why are they now teaching kids to be able to be a different gender?
That would be so wholesome now.
Yeah, I know when I first started the
that's
business, you would
normal.
say that. You'd say, oh, that's very helpful. But it's talking about those issues and just framing it in common sense. And again, skip over the folks who are gone, who just need a shot of morphine and we're just gonna put them out of their misery. But go to the one that
All right,
you
Canada.
All right, this is a funny question. If Congressman Kathleen Clark is your congressperson and Senator Markey's your neighbor, who do you send crazy videos to? So I would say Julian.
Yeah, send them to me. We'll take them.
Maybe anyone on this.
You can send them to
and
me
then
if you
Jason
want.
Crosby, our video guy in the back, definitely get his info. So neighbor of Ed Markey, please.
By the way,
identify
the
yourself.
Catherine Clark, who has recently said that she knows everyone in Massachusetts is suffering because of the shutdown, but she just needs to use you as leverage. So just keep that in mind when you go to
He
vote.
keeps saying that. Who told him that was a good idea?
All right, so this is kind of interesting question. How do you combat the militarism and the victimhood complex mentality that's so present in Massachusetts?
I think the more you give it legitimacy, I think you're actually helping it. I think if you ignore it, and I think if you move on, I think Trump taught us one thing. And yes, we can agree or disagree with some of his methods, but I'm just not going to get involved in that. I'm just not going to be part of it. I'm not going to feed into the victim mentality. I'm just not going to. I'm going to ignore it. And not ignore it in a way that's cruel. And this is where I think some of my colleagues in conservative talk go wrong and really poke fun at it. Just say, I don't really think that person's a victim. And then have on your show, like I had a good friend on who grew up in communist Poland, and say, let me really explain to you what oppression really is. When you left your house and then you had to explain later why you left. I just think don't give it any attention. I really feel that's, and not say, well, I'm trying to be good about that. And I think Mary Katharine nailed it earlier when she was talking about how Republicans felt, do we be softer? Do we lighten this up? Just, it's not soft or hard, it's just, that's kind of silly.
Yeah.
We tried that with Mitt Romney. I was on that campaign. It did not work.
No, I know.
And I'll say the vast majority of people don't want to be victims. I think that is a super minority. They're very loud, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Insufferably loud at some times. But most people want opportunity. They want hope. They want a job. They want their kids to be better off than they were. Like, that's what normal people care about, getting back to like normal issues. Like the Vermont example I gave at the beginning, those people are Democrats. It was Democrats that voted for Republicans. They stopped caring about party politics and little ideologies as soon as those bills hit. They couldn't afford a house. Their kids had to move out of the state. They stopped caring. As soon as you connected it to who actually did that, that's when they flipped. So if you focus on the right things, Virginia, they were going after those people's kids. That's when they stopped caring. So finding those issues that people will put the politics aside and vote based on the policy outcome they're looking for.
That also means that conservatives in states like Massachusetts have to put the most partisan of the politics aside. Because if the argument is on your side, if the facts are on your side, then you don't have to rely on whatever the national politics are. And this is often, I think, like, this is one of the challenges that Republicans in this state who are running face, is that a lot of them, like, let's think about the Jeff Deal campaign, for example, getting a Trump endorsement. That might play in swing states, but it certainly doesn't play in Massachusetts. So I think the key to being probably a more successful candidates here, anyone that's involved in policy and politics here on the right, is to focus more on the issues and less on the most vicious part of the culture war, even if you're right. Just focus on the facts.
Well, and I would say when you marry the issues with someone who is brave enough to have a personality and speak publicly and be a leader who is accessible, and thank you to you for doing that, because it is scary. But if you are somebody who has spent some time studying, who cares about what you're doing, who doesn't have a parking space to lose, you can you can really make a difference. I think there's a General Assembly member, Nick Freitas in Virginia, who ran for Senate in a bad year for Republicans, did go well. And I wish he were higher up in the party. But he has made so much of his position in Virginia, partly because he has a great personality, a great personal story, uses social media wisely, is like a funny guy who communicates the common sense things we care about in a very entertaining way. And it gives him more power in his job and way more followers than he has constituents, probably. It's to me, the good model of the social media married with an actual purpose. And that can make your issues just fly when you are able to communicate in that way.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that quickly. So whenever I'm out, the years that I've been doing this, is one of the things that I want you guys to do is, so Paul asked me today to come in and be hopeful and positive, and I said, Paul, you know that's not me. I'm going to give it the best I can do. But as Republicans, and believe it or not, you're all activists. So the majority of people are not out right now listening to an elected official and a bunch of media people about conservative politics and social media and engaging. So you guys are activists. We need you to engage. But one of the things that I've always done is when I'm knocking, and I believe it or not, I still knock on doors. And when I knock on a door, I purposely, my staff says to me, or my volunteers say, do you want the list of Republicans? I said, absolutely not. I don't want the list of Republicans. I want the list of the unenrolleds and the Democrats, because that's where I'm going. And when I knock on the door of a Democrat, and the first thing they say to me is Republican or Democrat, I don't answer it. I start asking them about the issues they're concerned about. What are they concerned about for their kids, their families, their utility costs, et cetera, et cetera. And I just say, give me three questions that I want to engage with you with, and then I'll share my party affiliation with you. And usually those three topics or issues we agree upon, and then I'll share my party affiliation, and I don't leave until they let me have a lawn sign out front. And that's what all of you have to do as our activists on the ground here with your social media, engaging with your communities, with your elected officials. So that's what I want all of you to do, is ask questions of your neighbors, friends that are your Democrats, your Republicans, etc. Ask questions and don't be partisan, ask questions, and that's how you bring people over to our side.
I love that approach because it puts faith in the voter initially and says, hey, you have the power to ask me what you care about. It's sort of a challenge. It's something they can live up to, and then you're like off to the races. I love that.
Good. I do want to be mindful of time. The last question was to me, do you think rent control will pass next year? The answer is no. I think we're going to win on a lot of issues. I want to be hopeful. Next year, this time next year, voters will probably have like 4 or 5 really good ballot questions we can vote on. Reducing the income tax, having more taxpayer rebates come forward, subjecting the legislature, present company excluded, to the public records law. We're going on offense next year on these potential ballot questions. I think we're going to win all of them. I'm hoping that we can have this meeting again next year and have a big win. So Massachusetts folks, don't feel discouraged. You guys have a responsibility for Massachusetts to get out there, expose what's going on, and you'd be surprised most of your neighbors agree with you. That being said, I want to thank the panel and Mary Katharine very much. We'll stick around for a little bit longer. Mary Katharine, I just want to give you one thing.
Okay.
A little gift.
Oh, can I also say a good trick for anyone to learn if you have some time on your hands and you want to really annoy public officials? Learn to FOIA. You're all welcome to do it. They have to give you their stuff, and also you can come and see my picture from the Cheers intro if you want.
Mary Katharine, if you could just open that up. It's a little gift from the group here.
See, I'm telling you.
That's official. Meant to be.
You can always come back. We'll always know your name.
Thank you very much.
The Thank you, everyone. We'll close up now so you can get home and get dinner, but we'll hang around, so feel free to come and talk to us. Thank you, everyone.
If there's one thing, takeaway tonight is learn from Charlie. Don't be afraid to speak up, and don't be afraid to engage here in Massachusetts. You can change things. So thank you from AFP and Mary Katharine Ham for coming down. Thank you all so much. Drive safe and keep engaged.